Have you ever noticed how certain people command respect without saying a single word? They don't chase, they don't explain, they don't argue. They simply pull back, and suddenly the world starts noticing. People begin to wonder. They feel the void. They scramble to reconnect. This isn't magic. This is mastery. This is the power of pulling back, and most people never learn how to use it. We've been conditioned to believe that being constantly available, endlessly giving, and always responsive is strength. But here's the truth. What is always accessible often becomes undervalued. When you're always the one replying instantly. When you're the one constantly helping, fixing, explaining, your presence starts to feel routine, expected, no longer appreciated, just assumed. And slowly, your energy, your value, gets taken for granted. But something powerful happens when you stop being so available. Suddenly, the dynamic shifts. People who barely noticed you, now they feel your absence. Those who took you for granted, they start questioning their own behavior. The energy you once gave away so freely becomes something they have to earn. And this is where transformation begins. Sometimes the most powerful moment isn't the message you send, it's the one you don't. It's the pause before you speak, the breath you take instead of lashing out, the silence you choose instead of explaining yourself yet again. That silence, it doesn't mean weakness. It's strategy. It's strength in restraint. You've been taught that power is loud, that strength means action. But true power can be silent. Because silence rearranges the room. It unsettles the pattern. It forces others to reevaluate their own energy. Imagine this. You're always the first to reply in the group chat. Always available. Always justifying. Always explaining. But then, one day, you don't. You leave the message unread. You don't clarify. You don't chase. And suddenly, the silence becomes a message. They ask, "Everything okay?" Because they feel it. They feel your presence is no longer guaranteed. And that shift, it rebalances the entire dynamic. You don't need to argue to prove your point. You don't need to explain your feelings to validate them. Sometimes the most commanding move you can make is nothing at all. Because in every relationship you've ever had, there's been a silent transaction, a quiet give and take of emotional access. And without realizing it, you may have given too much, too often. You became the comforter, the fixer, the emotional sponge. But here's the truth. If you never pull back, no one ever learns how much your presence truly matters. If you never create space, no one understands the weight of your silence. Pulling back isn't cruelty. It's clarity. It's reclaiming your energy. It's reestablishing your value. It's reminding the world. Your presence is a privilege, not a guarantee. So the next time you feel like explaining, justifying, proving, try pulling back instead. Let your absence speak. Let your silence echo. And watch how the world leans in. Not because you demanded it, but because you showed them who you really are. Remember, you don't need to chase respect. You don't need to beg for appreciation. You just need to pull back and let your energy do the talking. Let's talk about a truth many people never face. You're not always being you. You're often just playing the role others expect from you. You've become the soother, the peacekeeper, the one who explodes under pressure. Only to apologize moments later just to keep the peace. You think you're just being real. But ask yourself, is that really you? Or is it a performance? A survival script designed to keep things stable? Because here's the hard truth. They're not connecting with you. They're connecting with your patterns, with the version of you that flinches, caves, and cracks a joke to avoid the edge of truth. That's not intimacy. That's conditioning. The more predictable your emotional responses, the more power you give away. Because emotional availability, when unchecked, becomes leverage. Not always intentionally, but always effectively. The moment someone knows exactly which button to press to get a reaction out of you, that's not connection. That's control. But imagine this. They bait you. They prod like they always do. But this time, you don't respond. No defending, no frustration, just silence. Watch what happens. They stumble. The script falls apart because you've broken the loop. In that pause, you reclaim your power. The part they relied on wasn't your love. It was your reaction. That was the emotional currency they learned to spend. And the second you stop reacting, your identity starts to shift. Not in their eyes, in yours. Because they don't fear your anger. They fear your neutrality. They don't fear your voice. They fear the silence where their power used to live. And once you stop playing the role they cast you in, they no longer know who they're dealing with. Good. That means you're finally meeting the real you. Let's be honest. Most people don't really respect your time. They respect your access, your usefulness, your constant availability. But your time, that sacred, limited, never get it back again time, rarely respected, rarely protected, because society trained them to treat your energy like a subscription service. And you've been auto-renewing, every day, every hour, every yes, without ever asking yourself, do I have anything left to give? But here's the deeper truth. Your time is your soul's currency. And every time you spend it on someone else's chaos, instead of your own peace, your own alignment, you're going broke, not financially, but spiritually, in ways no one sees, but you feel every single day. You cancel your evening. The one night your nervous system was begging for rest, the bath, the book, the nothingness. But then the phone rings, and once again, you pick it up. Drama. Again. You nod. You hold space. You give away your energy like it costs nothing. But it costs everything. It's time to stop performing, stop explaining, stop overextending. Your emotions are not a vending machine. Your presence is not a product. Your heart is not a reaction waiting to be triggered. Connection isn't about being used, it's about being seen. And the moment you stop being emotionally predictable, the moment you stop giving unlimited access, that's when real respect begins. That's when true connection starts. So pull back. Hold your silence. Choose yourself, not to punish them, but to protect you. You shrink. You give. You show up again and again just to keep the peace. And when it's over, they feel better. But you're left vibrating on a lower frequency. Once again, you've traded your peace for proximity. Here's what most people forget. Your body is energy. Every thought, every emotion, every boundary you set or fail to set carries a vibration. There are high frequencies, joy, clarity, self-respect, and there are low ones, guilt, resentment, exhaustion. Every time you force a yes when your soul is screaming no, you lower your frequency. You begin tuning yourself to someone else's chaos. And the more you do it, the more your energy field adapts. You start attracting people who expect that version of you. The one with no boundaries. The one who's always available. The one who's too drained to say no. But here's the spiritual trap. You start confusing being used with being loved. You start believing that draining yourself is kindness, that abandoning your needs is compassion, that martyrdom somehow makes you more noble. It doesn't. Every time you betray your inner voice to serve someone else's comfort, you fracture your alignment. And fractured alignment becomes chronic imbalance, emotionally, mentally, even physically. That's when burnout creeps in, that hollow, numb feeling, the silent ache of living a life that doesn't even feel like yours. And the saddest part? Most people will never ask what it cost you to show up for them. They'll just assume you had it to give. Why? Because we live in a culture where people feel entitled to your time, but rarely honor it. So here's your reminder. You do not owe anyone an explanation for protecting your energy, your peace. It doesn't need to be sacrificed so someone else can remain comfortable in their dysfunction. You were not born to be emotionally on call. You were born to tune in, to your own rhythm, to the resonance of your soul. And here's the truth that changes everything. Your time here is limited. You don't get to extend it by pleasing people. There's no reschedule for the hours spent in silent resentment. Every minute you spend betraying yourself for acceptance is a minute you never get back. Your life is not a bottomless well of maybe next time. It's happening, right now. So the question isn't just, who am I trying to keep? It's also, what part of myself am I losing in the process? What if you stopped asking, will they still love me if I say no? And started asking, will I still love myself if I say yes? Because at the end of the day, it's not about being loved by everyone else. It's about finally loving yourself enough to stop being used. Will they still love me if I stop saying yes? That quiet question echoes in your mind. Because deep down, you know this truth. Your soul wasn't sent here to be drained. It came to expand, to rise, to shine. And you don't expand by shrinking. You grow by honoring your truth, your real, raw, inconvenient truth. Even if others don't like it, even if they walk away, let them adjust, or let them leave. Because you have a life to live, and it should finally feel like it's yours. Being too available is one of the most subtle and dangerous forms of self-erasure. Because when people value what you do more than who you are, it creates the illusion of connection, warm on the surface, hollow underneath. You show up, you support, you soften their chaos. And for a fleeting moment, it feels like closeness. But the truth? They're not holding you. They're holding your function. Maybe you became so good at being useful that no one ever asked who you are beneath all the helping. Maybe you stopped asking that too. This is how it begins. At first it looks like love. It sounds like gratitude. It moves like trust. But it's not love, it's utility. And the longer you play the rescuer, you never spoke about your wounds, because somewhere along the way, your value got tangled up in your silence. Let's get real for a second. You became indispensable, because deep down, you didn't believe you were lovable unless you were needed. And that's the truth most people spend a lifetime avoiding. Not because they don't feel it, but because once you name it, you're forced to confront just how long you've lived inside the performance. Carl Jung called it a collapse of the self into the persona, the mask you crafted to survive, not to manipulate, to protect. You weren't faking it. You were adapting. Because somewhere along the road, your authenticity felt too unsafe. Your softness got dismissed. Your real voice felt too disruptive to be welcomed. So you gave the world what it rewarded: competence, loyalty, availability, and the mask stayed. But over time, the mask stopped being a tool. It became a prison. You weren't responding anymore. You were rehearsing. You weren't connecting. You were maintaining. Maintaining your role, maintaining your relevance, maintaining your place in the lives of people who only saw you when you were solving their problems. And now, you don't know where your usefulness ends. And your identity begins. Here's the part no one talks about. When love becomes entangled with utility, silence becomes a threat. Stillness becomes suspicious. Rest feels like rebellion. Because if you're not actively proving your worth through output, presence, and service, then who are you? That's the terrifying question you've been running from. But here's the truth. Underneath all that doing is a soul that's afraid of what happens when it simply exists, but also a soul that's ready to be loved not for what it gives, but for who it is. You are not here to be useful at the expense of being whole. You are here to be real, to be free, to be you. You are not loved because you're needed. You are loved because you exist. And that is enough. What if, when you finally stop, the calls stop too? What if they drift away? That question haunts you. So, you keep giving. You keep showing up, not out of joy, but out of fear. Fear that if you stop being useful, you'll stop being remembered. But here's the paradox. The more you give out of fear, the more you train people to love your function, not your essence. And in doing so, you slowly disappear from your own life. Let's talk energy. When your emotional labor becomes your identity, you're not just giving time, you're leaking your spirit, piece by piece, a favor here, a reply there, a rescue, a reassurance, a solution. Your energetic field begins to thin. Others have full access to you. But you become inaccessible to yourself. And it's not that you don't exist, it's that you've become hard to locate, even in your own skin. That's the danger when usefulness becomes your currency. You spend so much of yourself on others that there's nothing left for your own nourishment. Until one day, you look around, surrounded by people, but still feel profoundly alone. Not because they betrayed you, but because you unknowingly taught them to love the mask. Yes, you were generous, but you were also afraid. Afraid of being disappointing, afraid of being average, afraid that if you stopped being exceptional in what you do, you'd be forgotten for who you are. But let's be clear, usefulness is not love. It's simply the most socially accepted version of self-abandonment. Here's where Jung enters the story. Carl Jung would say, the longer you over-identify with the persona, the louder your shadow becomes. All those hidden parts of you, the tiredness, the quiet anger, the resentment, the depletion, they don't vanish, they accumulate, and one day they rise, not to punish you, but to ask you, what would be left if you stopped performing? You are not inexhaustible, and pretending to be, that's a slow, silent form of soul death. You deserve love, not just when you're helpful, not just when you're giving. You deserve love in your number, in your rest, in your absence, in your silence. Because the people who only show up when you're fixing things, they're not your people. The ones who stay when you finally rest, those are the ones who see you. So here's your invitation. Take off the mask. Withdraw from the performance. See who stays, not to punish, but to protect what's left. To recover the parts of you that were never meant to be earned in the first place. You are not here to be a utility. Not here to be accessed on demand. Not here to keep proving that you matter. You are here to live, to be seen, to be free, to simply be. There is power in being seen, fully, imperfectly, unapologetically, and the right people, the ones truly aligned with your soul, they're not threatened when you stop giving. They're grateful when you finally start being, because that's where the real connection begins. Not in what you do, not in what you offer, but in who you are. When the performance ends, you don't lose your power with loud, dramatic exits. Most of the time, it seeps out silently, through the cracks in your day-to-day life, in the petty arguments that shouldn't bother you, in the reactions that feel righteous but leave you empty, in the emotional static that fills your chest with tension and your mind with noise. You argue online for hours, defending a point you forgot you cared about. You write long messages to someone who was never really listening. You wake up already rehearsing a confrontation that might never happen. By noon, your chest is tight, your brain foggy, heavy, unfocused, and you ask, why do I feel so drained? Why does everything feel so heavy? Here's the answer. Every overreaction is a power outage within your inner system. Carl Jung saw it long before the age of social media. He didn't view the psyche as a storage of thoughts. He saw it as a living, flowing energy system, constantly managing where your power goes, where your attention flows, and where your emotions either empower or deplete you. When you react without reflection, when you respond without pause, you divert energy away from your center, and instead, you feed the noise. You empower your shadow, not your essence. You feel movement, but it's not progress. It's not momentum, it's motion sickness. And here's the hard truth. You can be right and still lose. You can win the argument, get the last word, break down someone's logic, and still walk away feeling hollow, exhausted, and unseen. Why? Because your energy wasn't an investment. It was an emotional expense, with no return. You don't gain power by reacting. You gain power by choosing what's worth your energy. That's where the real discipline lies. Your emotions are currency. Remember, emotion equals energy in motion. So every reaction is a transaction. You're either buying deeper alignment with your true self, or you're paying the price of fatigue for the illusion of control. Emotional discipline isn't coldness. It's not apathy. It's conservation. It's saying, not everyone gets access to my nervous system. It's protecting your peace from those who haven't earned your intimacy, from conversations that only exist to provoke chaos, from noise that's designed to steal your signal. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is stay silent. Not because you're weak, but because you've realized they won't hear you anyway. And your energy? It's no longer for sale. You are not here to perform. You are here to live boldly, softly, truthfully, fully as you.